Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to look at Red-Black Scam in Modern. In this past week's metagame, the deck was the most popular deck on Magic Online. And so what we're going to do today is look at the overall strategy of the deck, look at some card choices, just so we can leave this video understanding it just a little bit more. Whether you plan on playing the deck or playing against it, this should be good. Let's do it. So Red-Black Scam is trying to do exactly what its name entails, is scam your opponent out of games of Magic. The Scam deck is looking to not play real games, period. The whole point of the deck, and like the nut hands of the deck, involve Undying Malice, or Feign Death, or some decks play, I think it's called Malakar's Rebirth, or something to that effect, where when a creature dies or returns to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter, uses those cards alongside Grief and Fury. So like the best hand in the deck is, you evoke Grief, stack the triggers so that the evoke trigger is underneath the Thoughtseize trigger. You Thoughtseize them, take something. Normally it's something that like might interrupt you doing this whole thing. Cast Feign Death or Undying Malice on Grief, and then it comes back as a 4/3 menace creature, and you Thoughtseize your opponent a second time. And now you strip 2 cards from your opponent, and you have a 4/3 menace creature on turn 1. And besides that, you have like a red-black mid-range deck, hopefully fueling it behind as well. The reason you stack Evoke underneath the Thoughtseize is so you can take like a removal spell. If you stack Evoke on top, it means you have to cast Undying Malice / Feign Death before you see their hand, and they can just interrupt it with a removal spell, which we do not want to do. That's not a thing we want to do. So the stacking the triggers is like one of the most important parts of the deck. The second best hand is probably Regavan, in my humble opinion. Just turn 1 Regavan, have it not be answered. That card by itself will scam the opponent out of the games. And I would argue the third best hand is do the same thing with Grief, except Fury. We don't get to Thoughtseize our opponent, but having a 4/4 double striker on turn 1 means they need to have an answer in the first 3 turns of the game, or you win it. So that's pretty good too. So those are the way that we just scam our opponents. And it's really, really incredible and very good. Besides that, we have like a red-black mid-range shell. Because sometimes the games go a little bit long, or, just the scam isn't good enough. The scam puts you way ahead and then you got to close the game. Or I guess Blood Moon's a part of the scam too, right? You play Blood Moon against a lot of decks, you just win the game when you cast Blood Moon, right? As far as like normal red-black mid-range stuff, we're running 3 Thoughtseizes alongside Grief. You tearing apart your opponent's hand is really amazing. 3 Lightning Bolts as removal spells and 3 Terminates as removal spells. We're running 2 Night's Whisper, again, to try to get more of our cards. Remember, all of these scam things that I was just mentioning, you can do later in the game, too. In fact, the Fury scam is better later in the game, right? You just, like, Fury, kill a bunch of creatures, undie it, comes back, kill a bunch of creatures, and it's a 4/4 double striker. Like, that's amazing. And setting that up with Night's Whisper and stuff like that is super good. Playing Dauthi Voidwalker, because we're stripping so many cards from our opponent's hand with Grief and things like that, Dauthi Voidwalker sort of means that we can continue casting, our opponent's cards. It is really incredible. It's also a 3/2. Sometimes it can push through that little extra damage that the Undyed Grief or Fury were unable to do. Something to note about Dauthi Voidwalker is that when it exiles a card from an opponent's graveyard, which, by the way, main deck graveyard hate A++. When it exiles a card from the opponent's graveyard, exiles with a Void counter. And then you can cast something for free with a Void counter on it. So if like one Dauthi Voidwalker exiles a few things and then you play a second one, that second one can still cast cards from the first Dauthi Voidwalker because all it cares about is having a Void counter on it. So that's kind of neat. To continue digging through our deck after our scam doesn't work, or our scam does a little bit less than needed, we have Seasoned Pyromancer, be able to discard cards that don't do anything. Unfortunately, we have a lot of cards that just don't do anything. Like these later in the game, besides on the back of one of the elementals, is not great. And like normally you use a lot of cards in your hand to be able to do the scam, so rarely are you going to actually be able to evoke elementals later in the game. Seasoned Pyromancer is awesome in that regard. Refilling our hand, getting more things to apply pressure, all that. Playing 1 Kolaghan's Command, being able to get things back is really solid. It just kind of does everything we want it to do in a red-black mid-range deck. But really, again, the point of the deck is to scam our opponents. Cast Regavan and connect with it. Grief undie Grief. Fury undie Fury. Just cast Blood Moon. And then just try to support it in every way possible. That being said, our sideboard consists of more removal in Fatal Push, especially with the rise of like the Prowess deck. The more removal is pretty important. Unlicensed Hearts is our additional graveyard hate in addition to Dothi Voidwalker is very good. Torok Dreadcourser is really good against these like slower, either combo-y decks that, especially the ones that don't use the graveyard, and like control decks. Also really good against these like Solitude decks and Leyline Binding decks. Getting this protection from white is like really, really solid. And having your opponent discard the cards is very good. Necromentia, again, against combo decks, decks that rely on one card in order to do their thing. Magus the Moon as a Blood Moon number 3. Hitasugu is pretty interesting. It's graveyard hate again. It's mostly in the deck for the Grindstone deck, the Breach deck, because it can take out a lot of the stuff already on the battlefield and then exile the graveyards, which is really awesome. It's fine against Hammer Time as well. Obviously pretty good against Living End, et cetera, et cetera. Omnixilus is basically for a few things, right? It's for the mirror match in order to be able to like push through that little extra damage. It's for burn and it's for control, right? So burn so you gain life. For control, just be able to like apply pressure with the Planeswalker is always been very good against control. And Engineer Explosive, obviously, for anything that is you're afraid of that's 2 mana or less. I think this is mostly in here for creativity, being able to cast it for 0, and just like leave 2 mana up and your opponent can't combo you. But it's for a lot of other stuff too. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Red Black Scam is such a cool deck. If I wasn't so into creativity, it might be my main deck. It is so good. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.